Yes, expired.
Hey everybody, it's Joel. I'm here in my hot pink bedroom with the big black polka dots, and we're here to talk about the Dryden experiment today. For anybody who may be watching this and not familiar with the Dryden experiment, we are a Creative Commons publishing concept, sort of the Dryden principle as much as anything. We create different genre of science fiction and fantasy. We create entire universes. We have a sci-fi universe, we have a post-apocalypse universe, we have a horror universe, we have a steampunk universe, and everything that's created in any of those universes is placed under the Creative Commons BYSA 4.0 license, so that anybody else can work on the material. We all share the material around as we go forward in time and riff on each other's work. Hey, Dan, I'm right in the middle of the introduction. Nice to see you tonight. And that this allows us to build really big universes cooperatively. The rule's pretty simple. You're free to use anything you find in any of the universes. You just have to credit Dryden and the specific author that you're working off of, or artist that you're working off of if you can. And you have to put everything that you create, all of the characters, all of the story elements that you create, under the BYSA 4.0 license also, so that we grow and grow and grow these universes that we function in. And then we all support each other, and we cross promote each other, and we Twitter each other, and we make posters of each other's work, so that we have the kind of market reach that we wouldn't have on our own. And all of that's completely free. It's completely available to use. I'm here because I started the whole thing. And now, while I don't own the Dryden Experiment universes at all, I do run a very small publishing house that serves the authors and artists who are working in the Dryden Experiment. With us tonight is Daniel Hunt, who's one of our authors, Eugene Kelly III, who's one of our authors, and Tracy Vincent, who is one of our authors, one of our artists, and also happens to be one of my editors. So welcome, everybody.
Oh,
Hi.
We've got a couple other folks that we are expecting may drop in later today, so I'm actually going to kind of start the conversation based on the folks that are here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the genre that we're working in and just talk about projects that are hot or have exciting things happening in them. And then we'll have kind of an open forum at the end for some kind of businessy stuff. I don't really think I have any businessy stuff tonight, but I'm sure Tracy will tell me if I do. So let's get started. One of our newest genres, in fact, our newest genre is a horror genre that we have started. The concept behind it is that Eugene Kelly, who's here with us tonight, has started this really kind of twisty, dark version of the universe with these portals that interconnect different dimensions and evil creatures that wander back and forth. And we have just started our first project in that universe, which will be a series of short stories starting with Eugene's vision and then written by a variety of authors, short stories written by a variety of authors. And we're going to start work on that project in September. We actually already have quite a bit of content from Damien and Eugene, and I know that Eugene wants to talk about horror, so I'm going to get quiet and see what Eugene says.
All right. Well, let's say I've got two stories out right now, which can go towards the compilations. I really wanted to get the third one out to you guys before speaking, but I just couldn't. It's written in a very not understandable mode, but it's kind of a the way of writing is there aren't a lot of words like what and where and they did this and such. It just kind of this kind of remorseless marching pace.
Okay. Eugene, I'm going to step in for just a second. We're picking up somebody's television set pretty loudly.
probably
Do you have a television
mine.
set near you? Yeah.
Yeah, they're watching a USC fight.
Can I ask you to mute yourself until you're
Yeah.
ready to talk, Tracy? You're
Yeah.
kind of walking
sorry.
on Eugene there. That's fine. No harm done. I'm sorry, Eugene. Welcome back. Please keep going.
All right. Well, the thing is, as I say, it just kind of has this remorseless pace of like this thing stalking and stalking you. It's yeah, as I say, it's. I think personally, I think you'll see in some of the story points, especially at the end, there are definitely similarities to the last one, although it's very different. I think
Okay.
this one is a good bit darker.
Okay.
It is, yeah, it's a good. One thing is that there's no. I mean, there is points where you think some people are good and stuff, but ultimately, this is an example of a universe where, it's everything is ultimately the way it ends up ultimately is that everything is bad. It is to the most extreme, where the universe is basically put under the control of this thing. It's not one of the creatures I mentioned in my introduction. It's kind of something I had brooding in the background. The idea of a creature that how do I describe this? This thing that was perpetually dying, um, that reproduced, and slowly became more and more and more advanced, going towards godhood, and that you'll see this idea of trickery and playing on people's emotions and how people are so superficial about things. But ultimately, it doesn't get to the point where you have this creature that is just all bad and just completely takes over this one world in the worst possible way. So
Okay.
that is really what I said. I want to get out of this, but it's so difficult to. I've made it difficult for myself. I'm gonna finish it. I'll proofread and check through it once, and then which obviously there'll probably still be errors, and then I'll send it out to you guys to see what you think.
Awesome, fabulous. For those of you who haven't read Eugene's writing, he has an extremely interesting, very unique voice, and the initial impulse that I had when I was first reading his work was to say that it was sort of H.P. Lovecraft and Cthulhu, and it's really not. It shares in common with those genres the kind of the universe itself is creepy, and there are monsters that are sort of beyond human comprehension, and it drives a lot of people mad. But Eugene is a history professor in the real world, and he brings these really strong cultural elements, really recognizable cultural elements. And he's created something that's very unique. And as an author myself, I really look forward to sort of getting a hold of Eugene's initial scope of the universe and writing some of my own stories, which stylistically I'm enormously different, into that sort of initial fabric that Eugene laid down for us. So very exciting.
Okay. And
Go ahead, Eugene.
and just there's another thing. One thing is this next story coming up is actually going to be somewhat different. In fact, unlike the last one, where there are names and places all the place, I'm deliberately going back and making sure there are absolutely no official names of places. There's no names of people. There's no names of creatures. There's nothing. I mean, there's allusions, this city, that place, that thing, but it's just I want to make it as stark as possible. So at times you may have an emotional connection with people, but you don't really get to know them. I think this story is a lot more cold. It's a lot colder than the last one.
Very interesting. All right. Well, we'll be anxious to get a hold of it. And of course, everyone is free to work in that universe. What will be happening in the 1st of September is that we'll come out with a little packet that says, here's Eugene's introduction, here's to the universe, here's an introduction to how the Dryden experiment works. If you're interested in participating in our first short story collection in that universe, contact us through, and we'll get that out into the YouTube groups. And we also want to start working with some of the sort of dark artists that you find out there on DeviantArt. It's a little hard to get a hold of those guys because we need a project to give them to draw them in and hold them. But we do want to add the artistic element to the horror universe that we're working on because we think it's very interesting. Nicholas Mall, I see that you have joined us. How are you this evening?
Good. How about yourselves? Although it is morning here, so.
That's true. Nick is joining us from Ballarat, Australia. Nick, I'm going to roll over to the sci-fi universe in just a minute, and we'll have you talk about Big Damn Dryden. Let me just make sure that we have wrapped up Dryden horror. Eugene, did you have anything else that you wanted to cover tonight?
Damien maybe can be later, but I was going to say, I might be, sometime a little bit later, I might be weaving in aspects of that one short story he sent out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically it for now. I'm sort of, let's say, I want to see that Damien says he's gonna either today or tomorrow he's gonna bring out some new material. I can use that to build on.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's basically the mix. So see what he has and how I can use it.
All right, very good. So that's the horror universe. Since Nick has joined us and may have a little bit of a time constraint with the children, we're going to go ahead and move to the science fiction universe next. The science fiction universe was the first universe, and it is the largest and most established. Somebody help me. I think the count of books in print is at 3 and 4 in production, or 4 and 4 in production. So the sci-fi universe is by far the largest and most well developed. There are a whole lot of YouTube videos right here on YouTube that talk specifically about the science fiction universe and how to grow in it. And the big exciting thing that Nick is here to talk about is Big Damn Dryden. Nick owns Owlman Press. They're in Ballarat, which builds science fiction games. Nick, why don't you take a minute just while we're warming up here and tell us about your Frankenstein game and where people can get it, because I think people will find it interesting.
Alright, well, my Frankenstein game is entitled Frankenstein Atomic Frontier. And that sort of title slash catchphrase kind of tells you, kind of encapsulates the setting in a few short words. So the idea is that at some point in the near future, Earth's resources start to run a little bit dry. And of course, all the nations begin to scramble for the remaining resources of the world, and that has two effects. On one hand, many of the existing nations collapse, and we get sort of new weird things popping up, such as a communist city-state based around London. Australia becomes an empire because, well, I'm Australian, and I think that'd be kind of cool for us to actually have global power and stuff instead of a crazy prime minister who buys archaic fighter jets instead of health funding.
Right on.
Africa unites into a pan-African supercontinent. Mexico and Japan join into form an Aztec shogunate, and also you have all these sorts of weird political entities emerge at the same time as well. Because the resources are running slim, the mad scientists come to the fore as the innovators who can kind of make things work in new and interesting ways without the usual sort of resources we're used to. And they sort of we have this sort of reversion to B-grade science fiction and weird sci-fi as the sort of new basis of inspiration for technology. And out of that, in the sort of the last great war that inevitably comes, you have a group of creatures called the Atoms emerge, and the Atoms begin as sort of replacement soldiers for the battlefield. They're basically made from recycled wounded and dead soldiers from both sides. And then at some point in the war, and then sort of it's a big mystery of the setting, what actually happened. At some point during the war, someone develops a weapon that can exterminate humanity and does so successfully. So the Atoms are left. The Frankenstein monsters, are kind of left to inhabit this new frontier world of theirs without really any direction of the people who made them. So they're left to sort of rebuild society, and you get sort of two things happening out of that. On one hand, some of the Atoms band together for mutual resources and to start building up new settlements and found a new civilization. On the other hand, however, the main source of replacement body parts, because of course they're constantly breaking down, being made of different bits of broken human, the main source of replacement body parts is gone. So some of the Atoms revert back to savagery and become either marauders, or they start using animal parts and go a little crazy and become Moreau. So you get, on one hand, two types of struggles going on. On one hand, you have these little communities, these settlements trying to survive. And they've essentially established themselves in alliances with other settlements and formed frontiers and hubs and whatnot, creating sort of an Old West style post-apocalyptic environment. On the other hand, you have other groups of Atoms that become basically both the criminal element and the savage element of the new frontier, and are essentially trying to tear down civilization in the last sort of death throes of the world. So in that game, you don't actually ever get to play a human being. You play someone who's been made from the different body parts, dissected body parts of a former human, and has sort of survived the end of the war, or been made afterwards. So you're really kind of like just scrounging around the ruins of our civilization, looking for consumer products that you can then trade for other body parts, doing little odd jobs for different settlements, and kind of just essentially drifting around, riding out the end of the world. I think one of my friends said there's actually no hope in this setting the more you actually think about it, the longer you play it, because of course you keep breaking down and using and having to find replacement parts either from another atom or from some lingering storehouse or whatnot. But eventually that's going to run out. And then there's the question of who's going to inherit the world afterwards. And that's really kind of what the setting gets down to, is who's going to inherit the world afterwards. And there's all sorts of other sort of odd little creatures sort of roaming around. Like there's a group of sort of Terminator-style killer robots called, ironically, Killbots, that have their own sort of stuff going on. There's the clones of Adolf Hitler out there, and they've got sort of the last sort of cloning machines and just making endless sort of procession of different defective versions of Hitler, attempting to sort of restart their own civilization. They kind of have the hope. On one hand, that they're promising this very bleak future, that this sort of future of one despicable human being. At the same time, they're the hope for the atoms, that if they can get hold of those machines, they can start farming Hitler.
Absolutely the very, very best thing about the Dryden experiment is the amount of time that I spend wandering around in other people's imaginations. That was fabulous. That was really great. So tell folks, if they're interested in getting a copy of the game or learning more about it, where they would go to do that.
All right. Well, it's on RPG now. And I'm currently, because of course my wife, I think, Joel, thank you very much as well for sharing around the link to my wife's Kickstarter and also her sort of photography work. My wife is kind of, she did a card deck for Owlman, because of course the game's mechanics are purely card-based. There's no dice involved at any stage. So she did a card deck where we got a bunch of friends together and basically, and we went to this sort of grungy tattoo parlor in town called Iron Flamingo, where the walls are sort of, the walls aren't falling down, but they're made to look like they're falling down in that sort of like, it's so industrial and it's so sort of Urban Decay that it's chic. Right. Kind of way, like stylized Urban Decay, with a little bit of 1950s flair. So we went there and kind of did a bit of did a photo shoot where we got some makeup artists in and did everyone up as Frankenstein creatures. And she's the sort of taken that sort of little project, making the card deck, and then turned it into a full-blown photo exhibition. So this is the link to the first edition. I'm currently in the process of I just threw it in the chat there on RPG Now, and I'm currently in the process of doing up a sort of an expanded and revised edition, because of course that's my very first role-play game that I ever commercially produced. The sort of like the first system that took years to kind of develop the concept of and sort of played with on and off. So I'll say it's up there. At the same time, I'll say forgive my mistakes. They're all rookie things.
Well, we will put that link below and look forward to seeing further ones. All right, so that was a great little sidetrack. I'm really glad we went on that journey. When you're vacationing and it says, a mile and a half to the scenic overlook, and you go, I don't know, should we hike up there? Well, that turned out to have the Grand Canyon at the other end of it. That was wonderful. Thank you very much.
No worries.
So Frankenstein Atomic Frontier, everybody, Owlman Press. That's great. We'll get the link below for folks. And in the meantime, Nick has also designed a role-playing game called Big Damn Sci-Fi, which is a science fiction-based role-playing game. Has several expansions attached to it, and maybe in February, quite a while ago now, Owlman and Dryden started talking about how to put the Dryden universe, which is under Creative Commons, together with Nick's sci-fi rules to create a sci-fi role-playing game set in our sci-fi universe, and it's going swimmingly.
It is.
We have had playtests in Ballarat, Australia. We've had playtest in Manhattan, Kansas. We think we've had a playtest in Idaho, Salmon, Idaho at this point, but we haven't had feedback yet from them. I know that Manhattan is on their 4th playtest tomorrow night. I'm not sure where Ballarat is, on 3 or 4. And the mechanics are
number 3 for Ballarat.
number 3 for Ballarat, and the mechanics are looking very, very strong. We've tested espionage, we've tested space combat between spaceships. We've experimented with genetically modified corgis. It's really been an exciting process, and where we are now is we are doing layout. There's just a very, very early sample of the layout out there that shows how things would lay out on a page, different colored boxes for things that are related to the rules, different colored boxes for things that are related to the universe. Our own Gavin has made a total of 11 maps, 10 of solar systems and 1 of the human space in the year 2503, which is the year that the role-playing game is set in. And they look fabulous. They're all over Facebook. Stop by the author and artist page or the Dryden fan page and take a look at some of them if you're interested. And we're going to press in 2013 or 2015. Suddenly I lost track of what year it was. Tracy, help me. We think we're doing it at the end of October.
Yeah.
Right on.
I have to unmute myself. I was talking.
It's all right. My bad.
Sometime around the end of October. We're working through line edits right now, too.
That's right. We're also doing line edits right now, the entire text. I think we ended up with 30,000 words of text. And that's not really everything because there will be thank yous. And Dan, I want to have it.
Sorry, 25,404.
25,404 the last time they were all assembled in one piece. And that's actually a very efficient rule set. That count includes tables, it includes NPCs, it includes samples from Dan's book Threshold. And it includes some sample text from me too that was generated specifically for the game. So the game system itself is extremely efficient. Nick writes a really efficient playable game. It has some exciting features. It's entirely D6 based, and the critical success and critical failure rules are set up so that it's possible to have both in the same roll, which I've never seen in a role-playing game before. But you could have this really awesome shot that was just a miracle shot that never happened before or after and destroyed your weapon. So it's exciting. You can own a spaceship. The rules for cybernetic whales are mostly a joke at the moment, but in a later expansion it's going to be likely that you will be able to play a spaceship that is also a whale, and you're never going to see that anywhere else. I don't know that it's quite Atomic Frontier level of unique, but it's pretty unique. And we are really, really excited. We're going to do a pre-release version of the game that is playable but doesn't contain all of the rules. For example, character design rules won't be included. You'll get NPCs or PCs and a scenario with the rule set. So if you want to be able to develop your own characters, you'll have to purchase the full game. And that will be coming out before we go to full release. That may be out as early as the middle of September, sort of depending on how I do. And we're going to give away 100 free copies of that, so if you're interested, watch here in the future, because we will make copies available to folks to test, 100 of them, and that's going to be very cool. I think, Nick, that you are also appearing in John Four's role-playing blog as a promotion. Is that right?
I certainly hope so, because I did write the piece for it and send it to him. So,
so we hope that that's going to happen.
I certainly hope that yes. But yeah, my understanding is yes, I am. So
awesome, very good.
That is basically a small article on ad hocing settings for roleplay games, specifically planets for sci-fi roleplay games. It's kind of like my sort of the 4 steps that I use in my head when I do that. Which are now kind of like on paper for everyone else to see and use and whatnot. So
very good.
Yeah.
And John's runs a really nice shop. He interviewed us 2 years ago, talking about the Dryden experiment. He's been interested in what we're doing, and now that we're doing a role-playing game, sort of by way of support, he's interviewing Nick, or having an article from Nick published that will then have links, probably to the free version of the game, I think. But we'll have to see how that plays out. So, very, very exciting time for Big Damn Dryden, which is the name of the game. Nick, did I miss anything? Tracy, did I miss anything?
No, I think that is, from my perspective, the broad lump sum of that. I would probably add that the game contains rules not only to own your own spaceship, but to also, after sort of playing for quite a while and amassing a sort of a small hoard of experience points, found your own corporation.
Yeah, that's right. Or become a minor drug lord.
Yeah, so become a minor drug lord. Or in the case of my group on Wednesday night, where I just kind of dumped a whole swag of XP on them just to see what would happen, to set up their own sort of criminal information broking business based on spying on, tapping sort of their office phones in Lynn and tapping another criminal syndicate's phones.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I have to say, for me, one of the things that has just really rocked this last week is all of these locations. Dan, for example, invented the SETI mine for his story Threshold. He invented Make, and Dark Companion, which are two planets around Barnard's star, for his story Revenge. And all of those, as well as some of the ones that I created, like Lynn and Skelar's star, came back this week as maps for a role-playing game. And it was just so dynamic. It was so exciting. That's a really cool feeling. Gavin does just fabulous work, those of you who know Gavin. Damien, welcome. We're talking about Big Damn Dryden at the moment. We've touched on horror, but we'll come back by you for a minute, and we haven't talked about Rise of the European yet. So anyway, there's a making of Real. I suppose eventually all of us will get together in Grumman's Chinese Theater one evening to watch the first Dryden sci-fi movie together. Hopefully not starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, but maybe he'll play a robot. And I suppose there's a realer moment than when you sit down with the role-playing game, but I went to Manhattan and with characters, watch people build characters to play a role-playing game in our universe using the rules that Nick wrote and the environments that I wrote, that Dan wrote, that everybody wrote, and the art is coming back in, and there's just this wonderful, it's like springtime when everything in the garden hits that day where it all turns green and you go, yes! So Big Damn Dryden is being a lot of fun right now, and
I'm thinking the artwork is going to be a nice sort of like having the sort of maps throughout each of the book, having almost travel log to the unit to some key location in the universe, is going to be a very nice touch. Where there's none of that question of when you pick up a new roleplay game, where can I go? What kind of setting can I generate for my players to start with? Because of course you've got your setting, the game setting, but then you've also got to think about, well, where am I actually sending them? Is there anything already in there that I can just pick up and use and run with? And there's a lot of stuff in there that you can just pick up and run with straight away, as opposed to having to sort of sit down and spend half a day writing a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, I don't know if you're in a place to talk about it, but if you've got enough, do you want to talk about possible expansions beyond the base game? I know that we have stopped expanding the game, but as soon as you do that, you start a table off on the side of expansions. I don't know if you feel like any of those are in a place to talk about or not.
I think they're all kind of in a place to sort of talk about on and off, because of course there's sort of tentative bits of stuff already written there or else implied in the main game. And I think one of the sort of key bits of feedback that we've both been getting back is that people wanted sort of more psychic stuff. More stuff for their sort of high arcana. We've got a trait called Arcana, and that basically governs everything kind of psychic. And in Big Damn Sci-Fi, that kind of gives you sort of some mild Jedi abilities. Of course, in Dryden, it does. It's kind of more about your psychic resistance, and then if you take certain skins and abilities, that can then sort of enhance those. So I think there's things in there like say Arcana that people are saying, well, we want expansion for, and we're kind of tabling that as going, well, that would make a really great book where we start looking at what does Arcana do and start talking about that. I think, the obvious thing that I've kind of been talking about since day one has always been a book on the corporations, and doing sort of a book with a sort of substantial section on each corporation. I think we've tabled that for a bit later, though, in favour of looking at sort of the other entities that are out there, other than because, of course, the corporations get quite a lot of attention in Big Damn Dryden. There's sort of they basically become the patron of your group, so you don't have that sort of factor in the game. While you do have that factor in the game of a group of misfits working together, there's sort of the corporations become the glue that holds them together, in that they all work. Everyone has to collectively choose. Everyone at the table collectively chooses one corporation to work for. And that then gives them sort of a rationale for all these different people being together, and B, gives them a little bonus. So I think sort of like there's two obvious sort of expansions that we've been talking about. One is something focused on each of the corporations. I think the one that we're doing first, Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, is the one on sort of all the other kinds of people you might end up working for out there. So there's League of Planets, eccentric billionaires living in hollowed-out asteroids, which I've got to say is a very exciting concept to be playing with, because I saw Jurassic World last night, and I've just got my picture of the guy going, did your general ever fly into battle with... Spoiler alert, the billionaire dies in Jurassic World. But this eccentric billionaire...
That specifically those sort of billionaires living in hollowed out asteroids comes from Dan Hunt and Eclipsing of Cyrus C, which we're going to talk about in a minute, which is also the source of two other new groups that we may look at, the Federation and the Consortium. Yes. Dan has really done a lot of the legwork in terms of getting stories out in front of us that we can come back and go, well, if that was a role-playing game, how would you do that? So we're going to segue in a minute into Dan talking about the release of Eclipsing of Cyrus C, but three of the entities that we're looking at come from there. I want to say that I'm really excited to see the IDF develop. The IDF is the Interspecies Defense Fund. They are guerrilla pirate warriors who are opposed to the expansion of the corporations and the ecological damage that the corporations are doing around the science fiction universe in the year 2503, and I think that they would be badass to role play. And they're in the base rule set, but they're not very well explored, and I look forward to seeing them develop.
And I think, of course, the other thing that we look at sort of, I think this one's kind of like the late down the track sort of expansion set would be to look at aliens and start looking at, okay, the space whales and everything else out there kind of on the fringes, right. Expanding the techno prey quite a little bit as sort of like this big lingering threat to sort of start dealing with, or maybe not, maybe we'll get a bit of xenomorph experimentation, because that sounds like such a great idea.
Right on. Well, there is, I think, no end to the things to talk about Big Damn Dryden, but I kind of want to get on to some of the other exciting things going on in the universe, which feed into that, as a matter of fact. And Dan, we've talked about Eclipsing of Cyrus C quite a bit, and you talked about it last week. Do you want to talk at all about the story and what happens in that story, and then also when we might all get our grubby paws on it?
Well, I got it back this week from the publisher. I'm doing my final read-through, and I've gone through half of it. So I think that it's going to go back to the publisher at the end of next week, and then they'll do whatever they do with it and give me a date to spin it out. So it's real close.
Awesome.
It's an interesting story, I think. It's in this universe, there's not a lot of alien life. And part of that reason is the techno prey go around and kill everything every 40,000 years or so.
Right.
But this story tells a story of a advanced civilization that released an intelligent microbe, basically, which wiped out everything, and how the Federation sends a group of folks to steal the alien technology. And they encounter this microbe, which then promptly causes other issues, kills people off. There's a lot of good death and a lot of explosions, which
We'll hire Michael Bay.
what's the story about? I say, oh, it's this person, that person. Well, what happens? They die. But yes, so there's a new alien species that I introduced. That at the end of the book, they come back to life, or at least it's implied that they do. So that's a frontier that we can go and look at in the long run. And yeah, it's real close to getting done. So,
there is. I don't want to give spoilers, but there is a cinematic in that book that I just really loved. Dan has this sort of Joseph Halderman awareness of combat and where things are and where things are happening. And when he gets to the big fireworks, not really at the end, but he gets to the big fireworks, that was a really exciting scene to read. I really enjoyed that. If you're gonna blow up a planet, just take your time, make sure everybody knows where they are. Wow, that was a really nice read. Okay, so anything else you'd like to say about Eclipsing right now?
No, but I did make progress on the last story for The Dark Abyss. I wrote about 2,500 words this week, so I'm down to 3 scenes left and a little wrap-up piece, and that'll be done, so I'll probably submit that manuscript fairly shortly to the publisher.
The Dark Abyss is a collection of short stories that Dan has written that are all set in the Dryden experiment, again exploring new territories, new settings, new environments. The planet Telecon, is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, is a very interesting environment that I really enjoyed reading about and seeing explored. It's a TerraCore planet, I believe. At least it's set in TerraCore space. With a date far out in the future in the science fiction. And then we want to talk about, let me do my little crowing first, Alder's World Part 2, rough draft, completed. It's in the hands of Tracy Vincent and Gavin Revitt at the moment. I suppose if other folks want to read the rough version, they can ask me for it because it definitely needs feedback. I don't really want to spoil because a lot of people haven't read book 1, but book 2 finds survivors from book 1 facing some unique challenges, and they have to move, and it's not easy in the environment that they are in. It ended up being a very human story. There were 2 characters that I really wanted to get close to and intimate with from the first book, that I hadn't had a chance to do so as much as I want, and a third one who sort of grew on me as we were going and I got more interested in. And I ended up spending a lot of the writing just talking about people having conversations. I mean, it wasn't my dinner with Andre, but it did definitely end up being a very, very human story. And then part 3 will be the big climactic finish. I don't think there will be a part 4. I think I can make the strike to the end from there. So that's that. The other project that we've got coming is Rise of the Europan, and Tracy, Eugene, and Dan are all authors on that story, and what I kind of want to do is back off and let them talk about what's going on and what's happening. I'm sorry? And Damien. Did I not say Damien?
No.
I'm sorry. Damien, it's terrible. I looked right at you and didn't say your name. It's because I'm a bad person, essentially.
No, it's because I'm just very quiet and I don't say much.
So why don't I back off and just let you 4 talk about what's going on with Rise of the Europan.
Okay. I'll start. Basically, as this time, I was kind of sidetracked by this one story I mentioned earlier, which is just kicking my ass. But as soon as that's done, I'll really be able to get hardcore back into the Europan. And as I say, I have the whole thing mapped out. I have some of it written already, so I know exactly where it's going. Before, the problem was that I had all these different chapters, and I didn't know which way to go. But now I know exactly where it's gonna turn out. So, and once all that's done, I think Joel said have discussion over where my different chapters can be placed. I think
Right.
it's going to be a good it's really going to be a good way of breaking up the European into the story into different segments to kind of give it some sense of grounding of what's of just how the overall feeling, which can give a thread going throughout. So I'm really excited for. I've read some of the others, their works, and I mean, there's some really tremendous stuff that's being written. For example, Dan's work is amazing. I think I think I saw Tracy's. It's all magnificent. It's all really magnificent stuff. I think this is gonna be a really great book. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it coming together.
Awesome. Awesome. Damien, how are you doing? You have a sort of a critical story.
Doing well. I would say I'm probably at this point I'm past the halfway mark on my story in terms of just the word count, where I think I'm going to end up. And as far as the writing itself, I'd say I'm on track to finish by the time the deadline hits, so that's good. The other day I did a little bit. I wrote a little more on top of a scene that I'd had started, and then when I was finished with that, I basically I wrote down a couple of notes on just some of the remaining scenes that I want to get into the story, just so because I wanted to keep that fresh in my head. But I feel like it's coming along well, and I definitely agree with what Eugene said, that everything's looking great, and I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to see what the finished product looks like. It's going to be really good.
It's definitely going to be a whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. The cooperative fusion that's gone on is really sweet. I'm just going to say, just for a minute, the rise of the Europan in the year 2600, the creature that lives on the bottom of the ocean on Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter, decides that it's had enough of humans and throws them off planet. And we have 6 authors working together to tell the story. Dan's story takes place even before the Europan arises. It's the Europan preparing, and it's also written in a noir style, which is very cool. And Tracy's story happens after Europa has been fallen and has been taken over by the Europan, and is sort of a postscript, and the other 4 authors write during the actual battle for the control of Europa. It's very interesting. It's very Dryden. It's very cooperative, and I just had to say that to get us oriented a little bit. We are due for first draft on the 1st of September, and we'll set a release date once we know where we are. Dan, you want to talk a little bit about your story? It's already done, I know, but if you want to enter or spin or comment on some of the other authors.
Well, I guess my story, the only thing I'll say about it is that it was a lot of fun to write. I love writing crazy characters. And I think one of the characters in there, she was she was mental. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun to write, and hopefully people will enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing. I was actually laughing while I wrote it because she was so crazy and so mean. It was just
you combined beauty, lethality, mental instability, and you put it in a bar. How could this possibly go wrong? Tracy, please join us and tell us how your Rise of the Europan story is going, or comment on other authors, or just give us your feeling about the project.
Well, I'm pretty excited. We have 16 days. When you're looking at it, I mean, you can say September 1st to your blue face, but it doesn't hit me until it's like I only have 16 days. I have to have my first draft done in 16 days. Yeah, I could probably write scene on the end of it and probably still look at it and go, it's not finished.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm pretty much where Damien is. I've got some stuff sketched out, and I'm approximately halfway through the writing process. I'll probably go through and rewrite it probably 15 times before the 16 days are up. But yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited. And it was kind of weird hearing you introduce me as not just an editor, but as an author and an artist. I feel funky hearing that.
Well, who does all the banners for the Facebook pages? Tracy does. That's the art, and you're writing a story. That's the author.
I know.
I don't think I said anything untrue.
No, that's just I just don't see myself as the creative person. But yeah, I'm really excited because I've read parts of everybody's story. I've read Dan's story, and I'm just like, oh, this is so cool.
The cooperative power is awesome. It's just really exciting. Like I said when Nick was talking, the very best part of what I do is wander around in other people's imaginations. It's bizarre, but it's pretty awesome. All right. Well, I think that I've talked about everything that's immediately active in sci-fi. We've got 2 books by Greta Vanderroel that are in market right now that are set further in the future. We have a project that Katrina is working on that she's told me that she has text for, but I haven't read, which makes it a little hard to comment on. And I feel like I'm missing somebody else that I know is working in universe.
Kitty.
Kitty Sarkozy, but I think that project got sidetracked by her creepy house when the bank flooded. I'm not sure. Hopefully that project will come back. Kitty wanted to write a story set in the Dryden Primer about a guy who runs away from the circus to become an accountant. I said, that's a great start. So, we'll see what she plans to bring back. I've read other things that Kitty has written, and I feel very strongly that she's got the skills to write pretty much anything she says she wants to. But her introduction just cracked me up. With all of that said, I think that the big, exciting thing that's happening this week should be introduced by Tracy. Tracy, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I think I might.
You think you might? Is
I
anything
might.
exciting happening in the Dryden universe today?
Yes,
Or this
in
week?
Dryden APOC in 5 days. 5 days. Lorelei, You'll Never Die by Lord Conrad will be out. And it will be live.
Da-da-da-da.
I've been posting up pre-order links and teasers all week, and they're going to continue on until it comes out, and then after it comes out. And I'm so excited. I actually have 3 proof copies sitting in my house.
She has more proof copies than Laura does.
Yes. But yeah, it's awesome. It is awesome. I'm so excited, and I know Laura's really excited.
She is stoked.
Yeah, I think she's, she does the happy dance around her house. Just won't tell nobody.
And we've had some early reviews, and the early reviews are very strong.
Yeah, all of them are, and with the exception of one, all of them are at least a 4-star.
Yeah.
And that's really strong. And I've talked to people who I've given ARCs to, and even though they haven't completed the story yet, they all say the same thing. The beginning of it seems kind of disjointed, but then it all comes together. There's a point where it all comes together, and then all that disjointedness in the beginning melts, and they're like, that makes sense. This is so awesome. And I'm like, yes.
And I want to do a shout out to Damien, who wrote a really lovely blog post after he finished reading it. Thank you very much, Damien.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. If I wasn't broke right now, I would buy a physical copy of it because I really liked it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'll bet somehow, some way, one will find its way into your hands. I just get that feeling.
I do have 3 proofs.
Tracy. It's just a really fabulous example of the reach of Dryden. Laura is previously published by Dryden, but otherwise unpublished. She's 22 years old, and she just has talent. When you read her stuff, you go, yeah, this chick needs to be writing. This is the right thing to do. And by working together cooperatively, we have 25 ARCs. Tracy?
We sent out approximately 18 ARCs, and yet I gave the ARCs to 2 reader review groups. So I have no idea how many they've given out. Because I asked Laura if that were okay with her, and she said that's fine, to give them to those review groups. And so anybody that's a member of that review group, if they signed up for the ARC review, then they get a copy.
And we have blog posts, we have reviews. It's listed on Goodreads. There's a discussion going on about the main character on Goodreads, and this has been a $0 advertising campaign. We haven't spent any money at all, and that's that cooperative reach. And the more we do this, the better we'll get at that, and the more reach we'll get for everybody who's working in Dryden. So it's really excited. We're really stoked for Laura. I invited her this evening, and she was going to, and then her parents came home from vacation. Darn those parents. So she said she was going to try to get on, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's just exciting, and of course, because it is 5 days before release, we've decided that we need to tweak the title. We need to or chapter titles. We need to tweak the back cover, and we have about 4 edits that we're going to make. So 5 days out, we're going to stop production and change everything, and then go back to production. But I don't think there's going to be any problem with that. That doesn't sound, complicated or like I'm asking for grief. So we continue to tweak it even as the last days arrive. But it's there, it's ready, it's getting strong reviews. We're really, really happy. We don't know what we're going to do next in APOC, but Laura is actually working on a project. For those of you who remember the Turning Point project, we lost the artist and the author on that project, and so the new artist is still with us, and we still have rights to the work, but we don't have rights to the story that goes with it. So Laura is going to write us a new story to go with that artwork. And she's also working on a secret project. We don't know what that is. But anyway, Lorelei, You'll Never Die. This is the week. I don't know what we're going to do, Tracy. We're going to have to get together on Thursday and do something. Maybe we'll just throw a hangout and get together.
That'd be kind of cool. I don't know. I don't know. Probably Thursday. I'll probably sleepy. Because I'll be nervous and biting nails the day before.
That's true.
Like I said, I feel like a dad here, so I'm like pacing outside the maternity room.
Right. Don't give Tracy any cough syrup or anything on Wednesday, because we'll lose her completely. So I just have a couple of quick things left on my list. Dryden Steam is out there, and it's happening. Anya is... who wrote the Etherhertz series, is getting them translated from German. They're 7 books, and that is ongoing. There was discussion about it today. I think they're on chapter 3 of the first book right now, so we look forward to bringing those into the Dryden Steampunk universe. And we heard back from Maike this week. She had gotten sort of wrapped up in life. Life has been insisting on being lifelike for a lot of us this last couple of weeks, but she was back. She was talking about art for Coalbridge, which is a city in an English-like environment, except a steampunk version in the 1880s. The idea there is that Maike is going to do the art, and then authors are going to write stories. I've written a couple of them, and I'm really having kind of a lot of fun with that. Feel a little greedy about it. But both of those projects are happening, and then I wrote this note. It says, did I miss a universe? Apocalypse, horror, steam, sci-fi, and romance. We talked to an artist, an author this week, about romance. We've kind of laid romance across everything else that we're doing, because romance has a lot of different genre that it happens as a part of. It happens to be something that Tracy really enjoys, and I just kind of wanted to refer back to romance. Both of Greta Van der Rohe's stories have strong romantic elements, and if you are interested in writing romance in any of our genre, you should talk to Tracy, because she's interested in editing and promoting it. So let's make something happen there. Then that's all of the genre. We kind of have a little bit of an open end at the end for business stuff. I don't really have anything. I'm working on some postcards to go to Kitty Sarkozy for Dragon Con in September. They're basically done. I'm just waiting on a couple of images. And Dan, I want to have a conversation with you. I want to swipe a couple of lines out of Revenge about space combat.
Okay.
And I want to swipe a couple of lines from something else that you wrote. It seems like it was maybe something that happened in Lucky Man. but I want a couple of more of your writing samples, if it's okay, to include in Big Damn Dryden. I thought it would be cool while we're writing the space combat rules here to have the space combat sequence from Revenge, on the next column, sort of make it real for folks, make it a good live example for folks. And if that's something that you'd like to talk about further, we can chat about it afterwards or something, but I have that on my list of business to-do things. Tracy, am I missing anything on the business to-do list?
No, other than the fact that I'm going to be line editing for like next month.
That's right. You've got Big Damn Dryden line edits, you've got Rise of the European line edits, and you've got Alder's World line edits.
Yep.
That's why we pay you the big bucks eventually.
Yeah, I know. Plus, I've got to promo Sky Goddesses and Lorelei.
Oh, that's the thing that's bugging me, is that we are setting the Sky Goddesses of Dryden, which was stories written by Laura Conrad and then drawn by an artist named I can see her face. Why can't I say
Danielle Everett.
Danielle Everett. We're setting it at 99 cents on Kindle as a promo for Lorelei coming out. And we made that change today. As a matter of fact, it'll be free to download all of next week. That's the piece that I was missing. So we will be taking one of Laura's earlier projects and using it for promotion of this project. So Sky Goddesses is stories, drawn stories, set in the Dryden universe. 4 of them. So it's an exciting little book. It was the very first thing that Dryden produced that wasn't written by me, which was pretty cool. So, all right, well, folks, that was one hell of a marathon. It took us 57 minutes. Damien, we didn't stop by and see how you were doing with horror. Did you have anything you wanted to add to the horror discussion?
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to mention Eugene had asked me about sending him some information about a character that I was working on for the horror universe. And originally, I had planned on maybe like writing a page, maybe 2 pages at most, just some information to give him a general overview. But then I went back and I looked at the email, and he said, make it as detailed as possible. So here I am, 1,300 plus words later, and I'm still writing this, what was supposed to be a brief description of this. So, but I'm getting into it, and I'm having a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot about the character, like things that I hadn't even thought of when I first came up with the idea.
Awesome.
But just very briefly, the character in question is one of the dark gods of the universe, Azuntu, and there's a lot going on there, and I'm already getting ideas for future stories based on this character and his followers, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think people will really be interested in it once I have it in a story. The stuff I'm writing up now is just kind of dry world-building type stuff. It's mostly for the authors and people involved, but
Awesome.
I do think it's going to be pretty good.
And speaking of things for the authors and people involved, one of my priorities for this coming week, I'd need to do it before Rise of the European gets into editing, is to sit down and at least lay out the base pages for the website so that there's a welcome page and a page that will refer you to the universes. I'm not going to try to get terribly far, but I'm going to set up a template page, and I'm going to start copy and pasting some of our already established, welcome to Dryden, we're so cool, everybody should come hang out with us, and forget about Kindle Worlds. But that's a priority for me for this week, so that base pages will happen this week, the very highest level of the structure. All right, well, I want to just open it up to anybody who wants to talk about things they're feeling passionate about, Dryden stuff. If somebody that you worked with or that's here, you want to mention something they did that you enjoyed, or something that's going on out in your life that you just feel like sharing, I just kind of want to open up, and I always hog this conversation because I'm the guy that called the meeting, and I always feel bad about that. So I want to let everybody else get a word in edgewise.
Okay.
Eugene said okay, and then muted himself. Are you back, Eugene?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you hear
Go
me?
for it. Yeah. Did you have a comment?
Oh yes, I did. Talking about Dan and his with new aliens. This is something I talked to you about. I've been laying down some very small groundwork for stories, possibly a novel, dealing with something of a sequel to The Rise of the Europan, where you mentioned. I think I talked to Nicholas about this as well. The idea of having a species that is related to the technoprey, but is different in many ways. It's more like if you ever seen like a document, they see like ant hives, ant colonies fighting each other, wiping each other out. Well, the idea there's this area of space in the galaxy which hasn't really been humans really don't know about it, which is ruled by a number of sort of social insect civilizations, which are distantly related to technoprey, and they are constantly fighting each other. And due to a variety of political and social reasons, at one point a group of them gets pushed out, and they have to go on migration. And at the same time, when the Europan is trying to expand its empire as well, and I'm going to have it where the two powers run into each other, and we're going to have a big war and also some other stuff going on, which is simple. Maybe there'll be some humans coming in, but by and large, it's going to be simply biological technology versus biological technology. It's going to be like watching a nature documentary in space with creatures in space fighting each other.
I just love that.
That's basically what it's going to be, and that's going to be part of it will, from what maybe Joel will veto this, but it's going to take place in the Bell Epic, but it's going to take place in a very fringe part of the galaxy where the space whales really aren't, and it really isn't anything beautiful. So it's going to be this kind of biological war between these two powers, and I'm not quite sure how it's going to end up, but I do think, because I like the idea of having, you've got this technoprey, but then maybe there are other species out there which are related to it. Rarely in nature do you have just one species. There's nothing related to it.
It's a good point.
You definitely have this idea of a civilization which is similar, but in many ways also very different. And the idea of having combat, where there's no standard weaponry, no standard combat procedures. It's just the two sides fighting each other with no machinery whatsoever.
It's sort of like if the Nature Conservancy Project were asked to make a Transformers movie.
Right.
That's awesome. Okay, well, it's a big galaxy. Find a place and let's have it happen. The thing that I thought when you were first talking about it is if you get very, very close to the black hole at the center of the galaxy, of the Milky Way, you find an area where stars are less than a light year apart. They're just really packed in there. You get too close and they're ripping apart and being destroyed by the black hole, but it may be that there's like a really dense, packed portion of the galaxy right in there very close to galactic center where the radiation levels are high and insect hides protect you from the radiation, and planets are very close, so you've got your bugs in a jar and you can shake them so they'll fight. It's a big galaxy. Go find a place and let's have insect wars. I'm all for it.
Also, one thing is once after this, just random. Damien, once the live thing goes down, do you mind if I talk to you for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sure.
Awesome. All right. How's everybody else? Are we good? Are we about to wrap it up? Sounds like it.
I think so.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, this is just the coolest project in the whole world. I can't tell you how much I look forward to getting the chance to get online and chat with my friends about everything that we're doing in Dryden. We really are a fabulous alternative to how to get published and how to get promoted and how to have those big-ass worlds. I had this really great sensation. I went on a tear this week with Alder's World, and there was this tremendous sense of comfort. I always wanted a Tolkien-sized universe. I always wanted a Star Wars-sized universe. But, those things take forever to build, and I like to write stories,
Yeah, exactly.
right? and
Yep.
and I had this sensation. I'm sitting here going, well, Alder would never say that. And if the water comes on Thursday, and blah, blah, blah. And in the back of my head, I'm like, and over here is Lynn, and there's TerraCore, and the space whales are kind of quiet at this point in history. We don't know a lot about them. And I just kind of had that moment when I went, dude, you did it. You're there. You're in that big ass universe you always wanted, and it's all under Creative Commons. We're all working together on it, just like we were working for Lucasfilms, except we're all working for ourselves. It was a really awesome moment, and so I just wanted to say, you guys, I had this really awesome moment. Thank you very much for everything you do. I'm going to kill the conversation, or I'm going to kill the broadcast. Eugene, do you want me to hang around for this conversation with Damien, or are the two of you going to talk in private?
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay,
I need to get a drink of water, but I'll be right back.
All right, and I suppose anybody else that wants to talk, I think you're talking horror, wants to talk horror is welcome to sit in too, I suppose. But I am going to kill the official broadcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
All right.